And I just read this question. It was a great question. Let me just take a second. Let me step outside. Let me answer this question, because if I don't take a second now to answer it, I'll forget about it. But it's such a good question. So I think I got a pretty cool full circle story for you guys. Plus, it gives me a chance to procrastinate. Take a little longer than I should. Okay, so the question was that she knew that I always had dreams of playing in the NFL, that I always had dreams of becoming a professional wrestler, but did I always want to be an actor? Was that the goal? Was that my dreams? And the answer to that is yes. So, again, I think it's a pretty cool full circle story that I'll share with you guys here, and you might get a little value out of it. And a little use. So when I was 8 years old, we were living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Raiders of the Lost Ark just came out. And I was so super pumped for that movie, just like so many of you were. If you grew up at the same time I did, and that came out because I was just coming off of Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. And I can't remember if Empire came out before Raiders or if Raiders came out before. By the way, I've been listening to Tom Selleck's audiobook. I'd listened to the whole thing once, and it's so good I'm listening to it for a second time. And I did not know this, but Tom Selleck was originally cast as Indiana Jones from Steven Spielberg. How cool is that, man? I'm such a big Tom Selleck fan, especially those Magnum PI days, because I was growing up in Hawaii when they were shooting there. I used to see Tom like around the island, like, oh shit, there's Tom Selleck. So cool. Anyway, that just blew my mind when he told that story, that he was originally cast. And there was something about his contract, and he couldn't get out because he was cast in something else. And there was an issue with the studio at that time. I don't know what it was, but man, I just love that Spielberg saw that in Tom at that time. And you know what? Maybe it was the best thing that never happened, because Tom goes on Magnum PI and becomes this big old star. And then, of course, Harrison Ford makes Indiana Jones iconic. Anyway, I digress. So 8 years old, Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm there in the theater, opening weekend. It's sold out. I'm sitting in the front row. I'm watching a movie like this, and I remember watching Indiana Jones and thinking to myself, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. I want to be that guy. Holy shit, was he cool. The hat, the whip, the charm, cool with the ladies, kicked ass. And he was so proficient at everything he did, thinking 10 steps ahead. I loved it. So I was, in a way, like an 8-year-old, like bit by the idea and the dream of being that. But I never had no connection at that time. I didn't think, in Charlotte, North Carolina, I wasn't in Hollywood. My parents weren't connected to Hollywood in any way. I'd never been to California. Actually, I was born, in San Francisco, California, and then we moved when I was 1, and we never went back. So I had that dream when I was a kid. So years later, coming up, when I was in college, I wanted to work for the CIA. I had a great law professor, criminal law professor, and I think foreign affairs. His name was Dr. Paul Cromwell. Just phenomenal person, great mentor to me in college. And he said, look, you got a lot of potential. I know you want to work for the agency, the CIA. I know some folks, I could get you an interview. But he said to me, he goes, if you really want to become an invaluable agent, an asset to the United States, go get your law degree. And I'll never forget that meeting. Man, I remember thinking about it, and I told him right there in the room, I said, Doc, I really appreciate it, and I see where you're going with this. I said, but my study habits suck. I said, man. He's like, no, they don't. I said, no, they don't, because I love your class. I said, but I apply my study habits with only the shit that I'm passionate about. I said, other than that, Doc, I'm running around here just barely getting a 2.0 at Miami. So that dream went away and went bye-bye. And then, of course, I had a shot to play professional football, and I played up in the Canadian Football League in Calgary, as many of you know, in the CFL. I never made it to the NFL, and that was my dream. That was my ticket out. That was my dream. Like, I always thought I was going to become a pro football player and play for the Giants and win a Super Bowl, and play on a Super Bowl winning defense. And that was always my dream and goal. And I always felt like that was going to be the thing that was going to allow me to buy my parents their first home. We never lived in a house when I was a kid growing up. We lived in apartments, inefficiencies, and trailer parks. So I was like, man, when I make it to the NFL, I'm going to buy my parents their first home. Anyway, that never happened. I never made it to the NFL. But I always say making it to the NFL was the best thing that never happened for me, because it set me on a path, and it also put a chip on my shoulder that never went away. It's still right there. Fucking chip. You can see it too. Look at that. Do you see that thing? I don't know if you can see it. I got that thing right there. It's like literally it's a bone chip. It sticks out about half an inch. Every time I take my shirt off, people are like, what the fuck is that? That's my chip, my legitimate chip on my shoulder from not making it. So that didn't happen. And then, of course, I went on to become a professional wrestler, which the rest is history there. But then I got bit by the acting bug. My very first role was the Scorpion King. Was the Mummy Returns as the Scorpion King, shooting in Morocco, and that experience just blew me away, and I fell in love with acting. And still to this day, I love acting even more. I love acting. I love storytelling. Yeah, man, and I love actors. I love our community. We're just so, we get crazy, which is good, but also just so supportive. And I love that. And I love that about our community, our acting community. Always got each other's backs, So yeah, long story short, I did. Long story long. I wanted to be an actor once I was 8 years old, but I went through this, as so many of us do, these many iterations of life, and again, not being attached to the thing, your North Star, and not being attached to how you get there. And along the way, when you're not attached to how you get there, as we have talked about, then along the way, sometimes magic happens where you begin to see a new North Star materializes and you go down a different path. And before you know it, you're like me telling your high school counselor when he said, what do you think you want to be when you go to college? What do you want to major in? My first answer out of my mouth, I said, I think I'm going to try gynecology. True story. He said, get out. I said, what do you mean? He goes, get out. You're not being serious. I said, I'm just joking. He goes, get out. Go to practice and come back tomorrow and tell me what you want to be. Can you imagine? Dr. Johnson, you're a gynecologist here. How may I help you? So stupid. Anyway, shit. This is 8 minutes of your life you're never going to get back. The reason why I think this is a cool full circle moment is regardless of whether I wanted to be an actor as a kid, I had these dreams, being Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, to, that wild dream of working for the CIA, not even knowing what sector, hating this idea of going to law school, to being a professional wrestler. I knew at a very young age that in order to make any of those dreams happen, in order to achieve any of those goals, I had to put in the hard work with my own two hands, my own two fucked up calloused hands. But that's the thing for all you young people out there and not so young people out there. It's never too late to dream. There's that great saying that I heard a long time ago. You dream hard enough and long enough, then one day your dreams will be dreaming you. And then they come true. Or a version of that comes true. Or maybe they don't. But maybe it's the best thing that's never happened. Bottom line is, put in the work with your own two hands. Thank God I didn't become a gynecologist. Well, I might have been pretty good. Always room for a cheesy joke. And I'm going to end it there before I get canceled. All right. Back to work. Enjoy your Sunday.